Thank you for tuning in to another Bucks of America podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Veteran Innovative Products. They make several different products throughout their entire catalog. Their most famous one is the Veteran. It is their flagship broadhead. It is a 100-grain broadhead. It's going to be used on both compound and crossbow use. It is the first never-fail mechanical broadhead. Comes in at 100 grains. They have a big brother called the Veteran as well, but it's just 175 grain. Now this is made of high quality steel, making it dang near indestructible. I'm quoting Matt on that one. And it also comes with a 175 grain practice point as well as a 3-pack when you buy the broadheads. Now, they also make what they call the Atom broadhead, which is very unique and in its own design. It's all razor blade cutting. They also have the Guillotine broadhead, which is a fantastic device broadhead to be using during this time of turkey season. They also have the sought-after Hog Log, which is quite revolutionary when it comes down to it. Now, the website to visit all this stuff is veteranip.com. And for our next sponsor is MV Outdoors. Now, this brand is built on strength, perseverance, and determination. See, it offers a full line of apparel and accessories along with it. Their commitment is to those who are not willing to accept defeat. Check them out on Instagram and mvoutdoorsandhunting.com. Now, they've given us an exclusive code to use called Wise Guys for 10% off your entire order. Now, our design and other things else that we utilize for our product line is we utilize Cajun Unicorn designs based here in America. They customize anything and everything by allowing you to add a taste of the Southern life to yours. You can find them on both Instagram and Facebook for their catalog of products and designs. Now, my next one is my favorite one is Cook's Fatal Attraction. Now, they have a CWD certified deer herd. None of their scents are carried over from the previous year, so they start fresh every single year. Now, the scents are collected from early fall through the rut, so their scent is 100% pure. So there is no water or preservatives added to their mixture. All the bottles are tested for freshness by their quality assurance staff, and they'll ship directly to you, which is pretty badass. Now, this year, I used their products, the Dominant Buck, and I also used a certified doe estrin for when I was during the rut. So what ended up happening is that I actually ended up bringing bucks onto my property that I've never seen before. And I got proof of it, too, which is pretty sweet. I'm pretty excited for this upcoming hunt. I've been looking for, this will be going on my 4th year for Darkman, so I'm hoping Dominant Buck will bring him within shooting range for my Veteran. So I'm looking forward to punching my tag with him. Then, if you want a much further and much detailed breakdown, our friends over at Where to Hunt podcast, episode 54, it's called Getting Inside the Buck's Head. This is where Eric and Rich Cook sit down and they talk about certain scents to use both during peak rut season and during the off season. You can see all the results on their Instagram page, and you can check out cooksdeerscent.com for their entire catalog of products. Now, this most recent one, I'm actually pretty excited about. It's called Easy Cut. They are a product here made in the United States. They make saws, shears, bunch of unique devices that are best utilized when you're tailoring your ground blind or your tree stand in the tree to cut everything down. I've been using this product now for 2 years. I put in this application to become part of their pro staff here a few months back, and I got accepted, which I'm pretty excited about. They make a fantastic product. It cuts extremely well. What makes it so revolutionary is that it uses a vent on a small handsaw to help push away the sawdust as you're cutting. Now, I've used other products out there. I'm not going to name them, but they worked. But they just didn't have the elasticity that I needed for it to actually put a full day's worth of work in. and it's just like you can tell in the quality of their steel and their teeth. So please check out easycut.com. You can find them on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, the whole nine. These guys are great people. They're based here in America. I highly recommend their products. Now, this episode is pretty special. I got to sit down with Ryan Nordahl, the owner-operator of Epic Whitetail Habitat. And we sat down for about an hour and we talk about what is his influences, what got him into this, and then what was his inspiration. I was very humbled to sit next to him and talk to him about his project. He's got several major accounts coming up over the next several months, and he is a wealth of knowledge. So thank you for tuning in for this episode. Please rate and review the podcast. And here, without further ado, here we go. So thank you again for joining us here at the Bucks of America podcast. Tonight, I have brought on our special guest, Ryan Nordahl. He actually developed a company called Epic Whitetail Habitats. And so, Ryan, why don't you tell us what is the story behind it? Talk about your journey and where you are in your life now because of starting this.
Okay, well, I grew up in the dairy farm industry here in Wisconsin on our family farm, about 20 minutes south of here, in a little town called Hickston, Wisconsin. After graduating high school, I went on to tech school at CVTC in an ag-related field, and I come back and went into partnership with my brother on our family dairy farm. Just 30 registered Holstein dairy cows, and I did that up until 2011.
All right.
And my brother still continues to this day with the dairy farm. Very successful in his own way, but
you have to provide meat on the table.
Yeah, yep. And I guess I just went off on my own, trying to do my own thing, discover myself a little bit. And in 2013, at the end of deer season that year, I had the opportunity to go with a couple of friends of mine on a property walk with Jeff Sturgis, who is another habitat consultant in the upper. Well, he goes all across the United States, wherever whitetails roam and everything.
I think he's been on the Wired to Hunt podcast.
I believe he has. Yep, he's very knowledgeable, and I have a lot of respect for Jeff.
I've listened to that pod. It's for some reason the name sounds very familiar.
Yep,
and I've also listened to a lot of Wild to Hunt podcasts, and I think I've heard him because it's like he whenever he's on, it's usually about an hour and a half, 2 hour conversation about how we approach this things. And isn't he? He's based here out of Wisconsin, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he's from the Coon Valley area.
Oh, very nice. So that makes sense, and why I recognize his voice.
Yep. What is his? Whitetail Habitat Solutions is the name of his company.
That makes sense. That's what I've seen it pop up on my feed more than once.
I have a lot of respect for Jeff, and I've learned a lot from him. And that particular day, I learned a lot and took it back to my own property, my main 80 acres that I hunt and manage, and which is located down in the Hickston area as well, just off of our family farm.
So how many acres is your house at? Because right now, guys, we're at Ryan's. He invited us into his home here. And so how many acres do you have in your own place?
Here at our own place, we have just over 17 acres.
Okay.
Which is mostly open pasture, old farm fields. And
not really conducive for whitetail habitat?
Not at this time.
Oh, okay.
It is my goal to improve the habitat around here. There's a lot of things I can do.
Talk about a success story, though, because like you said, it's very open. I got the pleasure of driving in here right at sunset. Now, those who have driven through central Wisconsin here, Osseo area is just absolutely gorgeous, and especially the time that I hit it. It's just like, man, it's like just awesome to own a house up here. But it's like you have to you have to almost have your own business to be out here because it's very removed from Eau Claire, La Crosse, Madison. It's very rural in a sense. But
Yes,
it
is.
You can build something out here. So
But anyway, that kind of turned the wheels, meeting Jeff and walking my friend's property that day. And I just took the ideas and strategies back home with me and started, just really scouting out my own property and how the deer flow through our property and why they use particular, one particular funnel and all this other stuff. And it just kind of all came together, and I just started implementing the strategies that Jeff reiterated that day.
Okay.
And as the years have gone on, I just, why am I not maybe doing something like Jeff is doing and other habitat consultants that I started to follow? Why can't I?
True. So now, when you met up with Jeff, was this a class that you took, or was it something by peer?
No, it was a pure consultation.
Okay.
My friends had found Jeff on, I think, online, or they were following him on his YouTube channel, whatever they were doing, and that's how I met Jeff, was through a friend of mine.
Okay.
So, but yeah, again, why can't I be doing this?
Yeah, it leads me to my next question. It's like, why did you choose whitetail habitat improvement as a career path?
Well, my biggest passion has always been the whitetail deer. I was introduced to whitetail deer hunting at a very young age. I started going with my dad, sitting in a tree with him at the age of 6 years old. I was in first grade in 1984. So there, I just dated myself.
Wow, it's like that's the year I was born. So it's like pretty much.
Yep. And I just fell in love with it. And when deer season would roll around, especially archery season here in Wisconsin, it consumed my life. I mean, even on the dairy farm, I would keep chores to a minimum, and I would hit the woods, especially when the rut would hit. And did it affect my work? Yes, it did. But I never sacrificed my cows either.
Okay.
They always got what they needed, but hunting just consumed my life. It was my passion. And I knew, as deep of a passion as I have for the whitetail deer, hunting isn't everything, is what I always heard in my life. You're never going to make a living hunting. All this negative talk around
jealousy is usually what when negativity comes up is usually jealousy, because I had an opportunity to co-host the podcast here last year, but he listened to the whispers in his ear, and it's like, and I told him it's all jealous, and I'm sure once he listens to this podcast, he'll know who I'm talking about here. But when you start hearing the negativity, it's like you're doing something right because they're jealous of something they don't know how to commit to. Absolutely,
you're absolutely right. And so I asked a friend of mine, why aren't we doing this? And all those reasons why came up again. Too much competition, things like that. And the more I really got into personal development and stuff, and learning about competition in business. And that should be kind of one of your motivating factors to dominate. And
true.
And that's kind of what I've set myself out to do, is to, I have a lot of respect for everybody that does what I do for a living, and I have an open mind. I listen to them. I watch their content as well, taking bits and pieces, and I developed it into my own way, in my own system. And the tactics and strategies I use are working for my clients as well. And that's what I love most about what I do. I'm giving back to people that really don't know. I've opened up a lot of eyes to my clients, and they see stuff, and it comes back, the feedback I get, wow, we never realized, that you could do this for a mock scrape, or, how much a water hole here would draw a deer in here more and hold them here, all kinds of habitat improvements, just little strategies that people really actually don't think of. And, I mean, it's eye-opening, not only to myself, my self-discovery, but just watching the clients that I work with, watching their eyes and their body language. It's totally amazing, and I'm very grateful for that. I've been called, self-righteous and everything else, and no, man, I'm just grateful for where I've come, where I've developed my mindset and everything else. I'm just grateful, and I want to share.
Now, what other? I don't know. Since you're so early on in your career, what about since you've been doing just focusing on the whitetail? What other animals in the ecosystem have benefited from your changes too?
That's a great question. Rabbits on my own property. Not really known for rabbit country, but wow, just in the last 5 years since I've been implementing, hinge cut bedding areas and things like that, the rabbit population has just exploded. Rough grouse. When I was a kid, there used to be rough grouse just about everywhere in this area. And as I got into middle school, high school, my college years, there wasn't a lot of ruffed grouse around, and it actually became a real rarity to see a ruffed grouse.
Here's a thought too. Since you have a little bit of farming background, mostly cattle, but do you think pesticides played a role in the effect on that habitat for grouse?
I don't. I think a lot of it had to do more with predation.
Okay.
And
I was always curious about it because it's like I know growing up in I grew up in Iowa and southern Minnesota, and there's a place that had that was a season, but it's like I've never seen one before. And I still to this day, I've still never seen one besides what I've seen online or on Rennie Newberg's shows and stuff. But it's like I've never seen one. It's like I'd be fun to. I've always wanted to taste it because I'm always
it's very good. Stuff. It's very good. It's kind of a delicacy, and I enjoy ruffed grouse.
What else has benefited from your strategies?
Yes, just even coons, possums, squirrels. That predator effect. Everything can. Turkeys is number one. I mean, poults in the spring when they're born, they can crawl underneath those pockets of brush and everything that we create with hinge cutting.
Okay.
And our turkey population has turned around. We're fortunate the last couple winters too, of course, that have been pretty easy on the turkey population.
Especially this season.
Especially this year.
Ridiculously easy because right now, for those who are paying attention to weather, it's like down in St. Louis, Illinois, those guys got 14 inches plus snow, and we're at 35 degrees today. It peaked at some places I traveled today.
Yeah, and no snow anywhere, especially on the south sides of the hills.
And it's like I'm looking forward to the next couple of seasons because the deer that are gonna be born this spring are they're gonna have some very good strong genes and they're gonna be spoiled because it's like wait until that a nasty deep freeze like we had back in 2013.
Yeah,
I remember that one.
I do.
Because at the time I was living in Rochester, we had 99 days below zero.
Yes, I remember that very well.
I bet over here in these hill country here, I bet it had to be cold.
Oh yeah, it definitely was. And but yeah, it is.
And so now the unique thing about Ryan and I here, we have a friend in common here. His name's Bruce Hutchin. He runs the Whitetail Rendezvous podcast, and he's out there in ATA right now. And the first time I got introduced to the podcast, he was still in the mid 150 range, and then when I got to meet him, it's like listening to him speak, and it's like, and being from recently moved to La Crosse that time, I was on his podcast no more than like a couple of months after moving into the area, and it's like, and he told me about his passion about how he went to school here, graduated college from here, and he has a soft spot for the area, but he's just a great guy. And then it's like, listen to your podcast, like this is gonna be a good way to bring the people more into light and just to piggyback off what you did, because Bruce has a very distinct pattern to his, and it's like he delivers a lot of high energy in a short period of time, and it's like everything you gather from his podcast is just golden.
Yes, it is. It is, and I had the fortunate.
So how'd you get introduced to Bruce?
I got introduced to Bruce. It was basically on Instagram, I do believe. He made a comment on one of your Bucks of Wisconsin posts on Instagram, and that's just kind of how we connected. He reached out to me and asked if I'd want to do an early season success back in September of 2018. So basically this past year, when I had, just after I had harvested a buck that I'd been after for the last 2.5, 3 years, and a buck that I had named Captain Hook, and we did a podcast on that. Very enjoyable.
I listened to it just this past week, and it's like I want to get prepped for tonight, and it's like it was really cool. And because what I do is when I see something that's worth a story, I just tag him to it, because like when I saw your buck, it's like this is early season, he'll love this, and then sure enough, it worked out. Because anytime I find somebody like that here in the state of Wisconsin, I always try to bring it to his attention, and he always loves bringing the people on, and doesn't always work out in his favor, but sometimes they connect and it works and it works out. Yep,
and it did. Then I had the fortunate. I was fortunate enough to meet Bruce in person.
Where'd you meet him at?
I met him up at Northwoods Brewery in Osseo.
Oh, nice. When he was back here this past
when he was back here in November.
We're trying to hook up to go hunting, but it's like I couldn't get the time off to go to work out. So so next year, I've already put my PTO in for Halloween. Good. And I told him, it's like I show him the bucks that are like, we're going to be out here on Halloween. I'm sure we'll both be able to get a buck, and it will be good to go, because we've been trying to meet up the last 2 years. And then last year he got in that really bad accident. Yeah. Where he rolled over, and it's like, man, and it was the day I shot my buck. Is like I was wondering, like I hadn't heard from him because we were supposed to meet up. Well, that's when he calls me from the hospital and he told me what's going on. It was just heartbreaking, but he took the time, even though he was recovering and he had bust up ribs, but he wanted to hear my story. And then we sat down early midsummer, and I told him about my experience and what happened to it. So my episode dropped here recently. It's 542.
Okay.
So if you want to hear more of my story, or for those who are listening to us, it's like I love talking about it because he was my first archery buck. And, it's like anytime you go hunting, it's like we're storytellers. That's why we're hunters. We like telling a story.
Absolutely.
And it also brings us out of it's like our own way of our mental health.
Yeah.
It's a way to reset our mind because it's like I work in front of a computer all day. I work in front of an office. I love my job because I help veterans on a day-to-day basis.
That's awesome.
And it's like we help people all across the country. And my company has just been flourishing. So it's been nice to work with that and to be able to do the podcast. So.
Yep. That's awesome.
Now, I wanted to ask you, what are the 3 major areas you focus on when you do your hunting, your habitat consultations?
Well, the 3 major areas are food, water, and cover.
Okay.
And when I go to a property, those are the 3 major questions that I ask. And a lot of guys really don't know, if they're not doing food plots or anything else, where is the main food? Are they just getting it from hard mass trees, soft mass trees, things like that. So
explain mass trees.
Mass trees is
that.
Like an oak tree producing acorns, hard mass, nuts, and then soft mass would be like apple trees, pear trees, persimmons trees, things like that. Soft fruit kind of.
What do you consider corn or soybean?
I just consider that an agricultural.
Oh, just ag. Fair enough.
Yep.
Okay, so I'll learn something new about mass tree because it's like I've never heard that. No, we discussed about the food. What about water? So
water is one, like my own property. We don't have any water sources on our 80 acres that we primarily hunt.
Okay.
And a lot of guys think a cold running stream is preferable water source to deer. And yes, a deer will drink out of a stream. But deer really they'll drink out of a mud puddle because they like that warm, kind of stagnant kind of water. I mean, a deer gets a lot of the water it needs from the food that it eats, especially like when we're growing these food plots. A lot of plants are over 70% water, and that's meeting a deer's requirement. A deer doesn't require that much water in their daily system or in their daily needs, so they're getting a lot of their water from the food that they eat. But if you're in a property that lacks water and you add water to it, say a lot of guys will dig in a 100-gallon tank, bury it buried into the ground just to the top edge of the water tank and stuff, and the pull power that has, the attractiveness that water hole has is just amazing what it can do to a property.
I've seen that out west with the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, what they do out there in New Mexico and Arizona.
Yeah.
When I've seen some of these shows out there from Randy Newberg's hunt, his show, and then from Fresh Tracks and then Solo Hunt, because they'll go back and they'll at least give them a plug because everybody that's part of an outdoor show out west is part of that foundation. And even here in Wisconsin, I mean, we had our first inaugural elk season here, and this year, and it was successful.
Absolutely. And then the third thing is cover. I go into a lot of properties where you could consider the park effect, where you could basically stand on one end of the property and look all the way across the other end. And deer don't like that. The old thinking is, like in my dad's generation, come rifle season, we want to be able to see every deer on the property for as long as we can, as long a distance as we can. And that's great in that theory, but a deer, especially a mature buck, come fall. Now in the summertime, they don't like a lot of thick cover. A buck doesn't, with that velvet covering on their antlers. It's sensitive, and they can feel that. So, they're
still growing.
Yeah, it's still growing. And I mean, you get a wound on your finger, you definitely don't want that rubbing up against anything. And a deer is the same way with his antlers as they're growing spring and summer and early fall. And he really doesn't hit the thick stuff until after velvet drops.
Okay.
So, but when is hunting season? During the fall. And that deer is going to that thick, heavy cover. And I go into these properties, and that's the first thing I look at is cover for one. Food is the primary. If you don't have the food, you're not going to have the deer either. You're going to get a lot of those nocturnal photos on your trail cameras and stuff, and what they're doing is they're bedding on on a neighbor's property or a few properties over, and they're coming through yours under the security of darkness because you're probably over hunting your property for one, so a deer knows that. They pattern you just like you're trying to pattern them. So that's why they show up on your cameras after the cover of darkness, and they get dubbed nocturnal. And we could save that for another podcast.
We can talk as long as you want. So if you want to dive into nocturnal?
Well, nocturnal, these deer are nocturnal. They're not showing up until dark. They're showing up right at the last light, whatever. They're nocturnal. And that it's true in theory, but in reality, it's not. A deer eats 5 times during daylight hours. Okay. And like I said, if you've got that park effect land or you're over pressuring your land, you have to hunt every single day that you have a little bit of time. You've got to get, the classic cases I like are, and there's nothing wrong with this. It's your property. You can do what you want. But you get those classic cases. I got an hour and a half left before dark. So guys got to get out there. I got to get my time in the stand. Those deer are patterning you just as much as you're trying to pattern them. And you're overpressuring your land, things like that. You don't have the cover. They're off on a neighbor's land somewhere else, and they're traveling through your property under the cover of darkness come deer season, because they were there all summer long during daylight, but once the season hit, your scent got laid all over, and those mature bucks know that. And that's why you're not getting them until cover of darkness. And even the trail cameras can set off a deer.
Yes, that's very true. I was just not done telling you about that story about Darkman.
Yep.
It's like, and then this year I actually caught him on camera, but it was at dusk. Yep. But he actually didn't skid away, and it's like, I didn't see much more after that, but it's like, I think he changed his pattern, because this year where he came off, it was all cornfield.
Sure.
And so with the cornfield out there, her and I, we didn't touch the property very often. I think we didn't, our first set wasn't until, was it the 22nd, like the third weekend of October, and that was it. Otherwise than that, we would come out, like every time it was a rainstorm, that's when I go and check out my trail cams, and I'd walk back out, and that was the last time I touched it. And if I didn't see movement on there, I knew I'd just leave it, because they were still in the corn. So it's like, well, I'm not going to go out there if I'm not going to do that. And I sat one morning, that was that morning in October. I saw a doe come right by, and it was like clockwork, because she always kept on showing up.
Sure.
And she wheezed, and then it's like, well, probably not going to see anything more after that, because I haven't seen anything else. I mean, I saw a little spike buck, but where I hunt at in Minnesota, you can't shoot anything less than 4 points on one side. So it's like, well, all right, then, well, like I have my gut instinct speaking to me. It's like, I might as well just back out, check my trail cams, get everything set up the way I want, and then just leave it alone for a couple of weeks. And then, sure enough, and I didn't go back out again until pretty much close to my birthday. The last time I went back, and then it's like I did one more set in December, and it's like I didn't have the movement going through. It's like, might just have to wipe my hands today of this, and then just kind of relook at how I want to focus it next year. Yeah. But I still go out there, and like after the season ended, I went out there and I don't need to worry about putting any bricks out there, salt licks out there, because there's no snow. Absolutely no snow. So it's like they have plenty of opportunity. And with the amount of rainfall, we have a lot of acorn trees out there, and so there's a lot of it out there. So it's like, these guys they're going to be they were well fed. Yes. And I think next year, if we have another consistent wet year, I think they're going to be another well fed year as well.
Yep.
So what is your involvement with the entire consultation plan?
What I do is, like I said, is I meet with my client on their property, and I always recommend that they bring along whoever else hunts on their property too. Not only does that help offset cost, everybody can help pay for it, basically. Because what I do is, I have expenses too. I have travel expenses, sometimes lodging expenses, everything else. It all culminates, and that's where I come up with my pricing point. So to help offset that, I always recommend that the landowner bring in whoever hunts on their land as well, and to help pay for my consultation and my plan and whatever other work I do as well. And it seems to be a fair thing for the clients that I do have. And I do have a fair amount. I work with clients all the way out Pennsylvania, all over the state of Wisconsin, southeastern Minnesota, northeastern Iowa. South Central Illinois. I've been to Indiana. Michigan is big. I got a week planned here in February where I'll be going to Michigan and doing consultations for, I think, 4 or 5 clients over there.
Okay.
So I get around. And
sounds like it. And it looks like business is really well.
Yeah, it's coming along really well. I launched Epic Whitetail Habitat a year ago in December. So it would have been December 2017. So 2018 was a learning curve, building that client base. And here in 2019, as I look ahead, I couldn't be more blessed as far as the growth that Epic Whitetail Habitat has grown to. And I'm really excited and looking forward to this year, working with new clients and providing a lot of value. And what goes into the plan, consultation and plan is, like I said, I come out and I address the three major topics, and then we break it down, going over strategies such as, adding mock scrapes, water holes, like I said, tree stand placement, how you're accessing your stand locations, whether it be a tree stand, a ground blind, a ladder stand, tips that you can do to really silence your ladder stands, because as we all know, ladder stands with lynch pins and everything else are creaking and cracking all the time.
I use Gorilla Tape. That seems to be
quiet.
It
absolutely.
One tree stand that it seems to be doing really, really well.
Yep.
There's cotter pins in there too as well. Me up to it, and I don't hear any creaking when
that's
when
good.
I shot my buck in 17.
Yep.
It's like he knows there. I called him in and it's like put an arrow in him. That's the end of that story.
Yeah.
Now it's like I'm a little more skeptical about it because it's like, well, now maybe did I send off a flare letting people know it's like, hey, there's a guy that comes and sits in that tree.
Yeah,
it's like,
right.
It's pretty open, and it's like when I'm looking at it in the fall, when there's still a lot of green foliage, there's like I really don't have a lot of cover in this spot right here. It's like how I got this deer to come in. It was a perfect storm because the wind was in my favor. I called him in correctly, and it just worked in my favor.
And sometimes that's the way it goes. I know one of my good friends who did a major logging project on his land.
Okay.
He had his tree stand in the tree at the time of the logging. So here's this lone tree in the middle of this big clear cut. It was a slight cut, but it looked more like a clear cut. And the following fall, he went in there and sat there, and he shot a buck out of that stand the first morning in. And like he said, you feel like you don't have a lot of cover around you, but you just pick and choose when you move. You watch that, you pay attention to that deer, and when he's not looking at you, that's when you make your move. And he's absolutely right.
That's very true.
A lot of times you just don't need to cover. You just need to sit still and blend and have everything in your favor. And it worked out for him.
Yeah, I can get behind that too, because it's like when I saw that buck first come out, he was over 80 yards away, I was blurry when I saw him, when he could see me. So it's like that's when I had the arrow, already everything knocked in. I already had my hand on the bow, ready to go in, and the other one was just grunting him in. And then I also had to switch between the grunt and the rangefinder to make sure it's like I get him in close enough. And but it took me over a half hour to shoot him. But it's like by that time, it's like the adrenaline's pumping at minute 1. But by the time minute 30 came around, I was calm, I was collected, and it's like it's like you always got to see through your target. And my picture was going straight through his cavity, through the other side on the ground. It's like I didn't make all the way through because I saw where the arrow stopped, but it still made it double lung puncture, and it was just perfect.
Yeah.
The best part is like if it wasn't such an exact fatal shot, I would have never found him.
Sure.
Because it's like where I shot him, it was so high up there, no blood would have just spurted out. So I was like, well, this could be a long trip, or like I told you, it's like 40 yards away from where I shot him. There he was, just over.
Sure. And I run into a variety of clients going back to what I do on a consultation, and a lot of them want to do the work themselves, which is absolutely great. I offer to implement the plans as well, and I'll show guys. But for the guys that want to do a lot themselves, but maybe they've never hinge cut a tree before, I'll bring my chainsaw along and my hand saws along, paracord, things like that. I've got a habitat hook that helps with hinge cutting and brush removal, things like that. And
Why don't you break down a hinge cut?
A hinge cut,
and it's like I have an idea how to do it. I've never done it myself.
Yep.
It's like I don't have enough trees to really do that. Once we finish with the podcast, I'll show you
Yep.
an overview of what my property looks like. But break us down that hinge cut. And you said you have a hook.
Yeah, I have a Habitat hook that's a push-pull pull. That the one I currently have is about 7.5, 8 feet long. And but I always tell my clients, if you're going to do a lot of this yourself, I would get the extendable version. Habitat Hook is the name of the company that makes them. They're located in Michigan. I'm not sure exactly where in Michigan.
Okay.
And $90 for the one I have, and I think it's $130 for the extendable one. I always recommend the extendable one for the larger trees. You get more leverage on them that way. Very cool tool, though. I mean, the guy that thought about it's an ingenious idea, and it really helps.
Probably from previous experience with logging, because Michigan,
Yeah.
Minnesota, especially the further up north you get, it's
Yep.
a very logging oriented.
Yep, I would have to agree with that. And but yeah, little tips and tools like that. I have one client that he is absolutely petrified of the thought of hinge cutting a tree. You know, what if it breaks off and kicks back and hits me and that's
It's a fair thing. I've done
that's
my
a
fair share
very
of
honest.
clearing.
Yep.
And that's scary because
Yes, it
one
is.
time where I was cutting a tree and it's like it has so much tension on it, and what it ended up doing is it ended up doing a 360 and slamming right into my thigh, and it's like, oh, that's gonna hurt. And that was about like noon, and still had another 8 hours to go. It's like when you're out cutting, you do it from sun up to sundown because you got so much work to do. You don't know when the next time you're gonna get back out there. And it's like I was doing work with my landlord down at the time in Southern Iowa. And it's like we had a lot of work to do to prepare because it's like this is still beginning of June, and we still had to get through July and August. And like it's just you only get worse. So it's like we got to focus. As much done as possible. But yeah, I know I can understand the fear of it. But now, when you hinge cut, how high up do you go before you make your notch? Start cutting.
I recommend from about the middle of my shin. I'm 6'3".
Okay.
From the middle of my shin up to about mid chest height.
Okay.
There are cases where I will go a little bit higher, but it really depends what I'm doing the hinge cutting for, whether it be for screening, bedding areas. You know, everybody has the misconception that we're trying to create this false canopy for deer to crawl under, and that's really not what a deer wants, especially here in ag country like we are here in west central Wisconsin. You can get away with a little bit more of a canopy effect, like in the northern parts of northern Michigan, northern Wisconsin, northern Minnesota, where you get into those deep cedar thickets up there, cedar swamps where they're actually spruce trees and tamarack trees, but still they've got that canopy from those limbs and stuff in which they will bed underneath all that. But down here, what we're trying to do with hinge cutting is create side cover. Deer want side cover. We're not completely trying to block them off. I mean, you can with tornado zones, edge feathering, whatever, but at the same time, we don't want the deer to feel trapped in our hinge cut bedding areas and stuff. So we're creating pockets, felling trees in certain directions, separation. You could have 3, 4, maybe up to 5 doe and fawn family groups in a hinge cut bedding area, and we're creating separation from those smaller deer groups to take the stress off the deer as well.
Okay.
And then creating travel corridors, like I said. But again, they have escape routes. Yes, we want them to go down a certain travel corridor, but if danger were to come in there, say like a coyote, any type of predator, bear, bobcat, what have you, they can escape out of there easily as well. They're not trapped in there. So,
you mentioned here about a minute ago about screening. What do you mean by screening deer?
Screening deer, basically screening, say, you're accessing your stand, and they're in a bedding area. You know where it is, but your access to your stand is close by. We're creating basically a wall using trees, or like in the case of a food plot, you can screen with switchgrass, sorghum sudan grass, things like that, and it's a visual barrier. And again, separating deer groups out in a food plot, taking the stress off, because anytime deer are in contact with each other, that's a stress level. You get the bachelor buck groups in the summertime, things like that. It's just, that's stress on deer, especially fawns. Bucks don't want to be around those fawns, and they'll let fawn. I've seen plenty of bucks kick the crap out of fawns because they don't want them around. So it just, takes that stress factor out. And plus, like I said, going back to the stand access for hunters and everything, and it just, that visual barrier where we're not bumping deer out of their bedding areas or out of the food plots as we approach our stand locations.
Now, after the consultation, after you get done with the client, what do you provide them ongoing support after that?
I do provide ongoing support. What I do after the consultation, after taking notes, pictures, everything of their property, I come back and I draw out a map of their property and where bedding locations, food plots, travel corridors, screening, everything should be located. I map that out in a software system that I use, print that map out. I actually laminate the map for everybody too, so it doesn't get ruined when it's in the folder or anything like that.
There's value in that one piece of paper. It makes sense to me. I'd appreciate somebody doing that for me, because especially when you're going out there or you're bringing, like, it's holiday hunt or a youth hunt, somebody, you can bust out this laminated sheet here and you can show us, like, well, this is how they go, especially if they're like 10, 12, 15 years old. Like, but this is how we're going to do it. And like, this is why we're doing it. And it gives them a good, excellent teaching tool to keep that participation growing.
Absolutely. And then I break it down into sections of the property too. So I'll blow up a section of the map, because really that's what I'm doing when I'm out on a property, is breaking that property down into smaller sections. Say I'm on an 80-acre parcel, I'm going to have it broke down into 8, 10-acre sections.
Smart.
And what I kind of go a little further when I break it down as to actually writing out an exact plan, written words for that section. Okay. Why we have our stand located here, why you're going to access it this way, what's going to be in a food plot if it's a section of food plot, how and why we're hinge cutting where we are, if that's what we need. Not every property needs hinge cutting, but most properties do. What we can do as far as making mock scrapes, do we saw off a smaller oak tree or whatever tree it is and plant it like a fence post for a mock scrape? Do we take a cedar fence post and staple with fence post staples, some branches on top of it? Apple tree recommendations for this section, for that soft mass affected deer, just that variety of food that deer seek throughout the season. And I break it down and I write it out for guys. And it's just a little extra added value. It takes a lot of my time, but I really enjoy telling the story as it goes too. So people aren't confused. I know a couple other habitat managers that at the end of the day, they just leave their client a map and that's what they have to go on. Yes, they do get some support on the back end, I'm sure, with follow-up phone calls, consultations that way. But I like to have it written out, so they have a complete understanding of what I mean when I map it out.
Because you have kids, and so I was like, it's not like you're treating them as a child, but it's like you have that teaching aspect. Yeah. Because all I do for my day-to-day job is I teach people how to do stuff, and it's like, in that detail right there can help them out. And if they have a resource guide that they can always look at, it's like, okay, and then you call up or text, like, what does this mean real quick? And it's like, it's 2-second text message done, and like, and then now that saves them an hour's worth of work because of what you told them. I think that's smart, because I think that creates a solid value on that plan. This plan, it's not just one season. This will last the entire lifespan of the property, as long as nothing major happens to it.
And then I like to, I offer a free consultation the following year to the client to come out and see what worked, break down what worked, what didn't, where can we improve, what's working great and we can leave alone. And
I think that's smart. Come back and offer them and see how everything worked out, because now you're getting their own customer feedback. And you can also turn it into a recommendation too for that. Because this way then they can show that extra value into that.
Absolutely.
Now, have you had to tackle any burn properties yet?
I have not yet. I know that's coming. I actually had my first property that was enrolled in the MFL program here in Wisconsin.
MFL is what?
Managed forest land.
Okay.
And they kind of frown on doing any type of hinge cutting or anything that manipulates the trees in any way without their approval first, the entity that controls that program. So I run into my first one back in December, but that'll be coming out at MFL this summer. So those guys pretty much have open range to anything they want to do after the 1st of June. So
that'd be kind of interesting because now, too bad California didn't have the flexibility of hunting like we do a lot here in the Midwest. It's like that would be fun to go out there and like to just to learn from it, because with the likeliness of seeing a major fire like that is slim to none. But it's like you never know when something gets wild hair and destroys a lot of like your
absolutely.
So that would be interesting to do, because I don't know who we would talk to, but I think that would be a fun thing. That would be a fun conversation and how they would handle the science behind that. Because I know Newberg and a lot of people use those burn maps to help them go back several years down the road to go back after muleys, whitetails, elk.
Absolutely.
Let's see, and then. I think we discussed the value of the Epic Whitetail Habitat, because it's like what you told me about writing all that breakdown, that written plan. Now, my question is, what's the smallest parcel you're willing to step on?
I'll go down all the way to 2 acres.
Really?
Yep. It takes a totally different mindset and a different approach. Every property does.
Mm-hmm. That's true. I said we hunt on 5 acres.
Yep.
It's like it's like the cool thing is we have multiple access points on it, and it's not a park view. It bends, and it's got a lot of because like there was a time where her and I are no more than 150 yards apart. Mm-hmm. We can't hear each other either we're turkey hunting or whitetail hunting. I can't hear her bleats, and she can't hear me grunt. It's like, well, this throws a wrench into it, like where we set our tree stands and our blinds up, because we have all that sound barrier. And so it's like we are worried about pitch and how loud it is. And it's like, well, if I can't hear you, if I'm sitting where you're at, and you're sitting where I am, it's like, how are the deer going to hear us?
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, every property is different. So I could go all the way down to 2 acres. I've got an opportunity to go all the way up to 1,000 acres.
Have you had a chance to go to 1,000 acres yet?
That's coming.
Oh, that's
this spring.
Exciting.
It will be. I won't have to micromanage it like I do a smaller property, because you're spread out more. Mm-hmm. You're taking the pressure off. I mean, 1,000 acres. That's a lot of land that you can get away with a lot more activity on that property.
And maybe less is more in a situation like that, too.
Absolutely.
Because maybe you can only fix a couple spots here or there. And sounds like you got. And in this way, you can just kind of maybe rearrange the corridors, like where they have a consistent traveling from point A to point B to point C.
Yep.
And then, so what drives you behind this?
What drives me?
Yeah, the habitat.
I'm not doing it just for me. Mm-hmm. I have 4 young children. I have 2 stepsons, age 14 and 12, that love to hunt with me as well. And that's all I want, is I want my boys to have the success that I've enjoyed in my life of hunting. And it was really exciting to watch them take their first deer. I got more thrill out of that than I did myself. I have a 2-year-old and a 5-month-old, and just to see their smiles on their faces, I never want to see a tear run down their face from anything that I did. And my wife, she is my rock. She is my support system. She really stands behind our business, and she's part of the business as well, the financial end of it. Very smart. I'm very grateful to have her in my life, especially when it comes to finances, because I was not so financially secure before I met her. And
I know my fiance is the same way too. She's a little more financially sound than I am, so it's like, here's my money, just make sure it all goes right spot, and we still have a roof over our head.
Absolutely,
drive a car.
Absolutely.
So, which is it's good to have that balance, that team. What drives me behind my son was my little daughter too. It's like last year she caught her first bass, and it's like I was more excited than she was. It's like now she just I was talking to her yesterday. We had an hour-long conversation between no music, no nothing. We're talking about school. We're talking about how her baby brother's doing, and she's just on her way here. It's like she wanted to go archery. She wanted to go to the archery range. I didn't even prompt her to it. She wanted to do it herself. So it's like I like hearing that, because I'm not going to pressure her to do it.
Yep.
She wants to do it. And then for her birthday, we got, because I'm not going to see her until after her birthday. Okay. So what we did is we saw at Walmart, and they had this triangle, a dartboard.
Sure.
And a targeting hat, and it came with a bow, a crossbow, and a rifle. And we opened it up last night for her birthday, and we set it up today, and she's just loving it. And hooping and hollering. It's like, Dad, look what I did. Look what I did. And
That's
it's like, and I come out and she's got a headshot. And it's like, well, you didn't ruin any meat. And it's like, I wasn't worried about the antlers. It's like, you didn't ruin any meat. That's all that matters. Because I want to show them that a rack is nice to have, but that's just the story behind it. It's the meat what drives us, because it allows us to show them to feed them. Like, I have people now, I now do, we do cookouts every once in a while.
Okay.
Where like this past summer, I brought venison in and I showed them how to do, I didn't show them how to do, I prepared some, venison shish kebabs. Then Amanda Payne, she does deer recipes. She runs her own blog. It's like my recipe I debuted for that, because she asked me like almost a month prior. It's like I had to come up with something that I thought was really confident to demonstrate, and like results of really good food. And it's like I had 12 people that I had no leftovers. I had nothing. So it's like, this is it, guys. That's how I base success off a recipe. And that's what drives me. And so now we got I got a dinner planned this week with some friends in the Crescent.
Okay.
And then we have later down the road, we're going to do a wild game feed for my friend and his wife. He runs a podcast called Stationary Astronaut. Okay. His is very upbeat, very personal. It's all inspirational. Awesome. He's the one that brought in Gary Vaynerchuk in Rochester, Minnesota.
Oh, cool.
So it's like I couldn't make it, but it's like I know him, and it's like I follow Gary throughout a day, and it's like I don't need him as much as in my life as some people do, but it's like, as long as I keep on using that as like kind of a checkpoint where I'm at with my own expectations for myself.
Yep.
Because I don't want to get lazy. And it's like, and it's like, now I got a wedding coming up, and so it's like I see you always talking about health and wellness, and I'm seeing all these people, the before and after pictures. What do you do? What have you gotten this big following about health?
Well, I tell you, health. We take our health for granted, and that's kind of my motivation and why my kids are the most important thing in my life. Mm-hmm. I want to be their inspiration.
Yeah.
I want to be their hero, whether it's health, eating healthy, just being healthy, physically fit, anything like that, because we've only got one life to live, and I want to max out my life. In the words of Ed Milet, I want to max out.
Yeah.
And
so now, do you do health consultations?
I do health consultations on online on the side, and it's really, I have no overhead with that business. Mm-hmm. And with the Epic Whitetail Habitat, we own equipment, we have insurance that we have to pay.
Which reminds me, I have a website for you where it's here in Wisconsin. The auction's not too far away, but it allows you to actually buy seized equipment. It reads prices, tractors,
cool.
Tillers, all that, planters, all that fun stuff.
Awesome.
ATVs, 6x6s, trucks, utility trucks. And it's like, I got introduced to it on Friday. It's like, and I send this to, and I want to get this out to backcounters, hunters, and anglers, because I'm sure sometime in the future, this could be useful for them, because they do a lot of CRP land, cultivations. They go out and they pick up garbage from the fields. So that I was in Illinois last week, and we're coming up I-39. That state is extremely dirty.
Yep.
And it's like you have a workforce incarcerated.
Yeah.
Just pull them out and get them clean up that. Or
absolutely.
There's a lot of people on food stamps, like put them back to work.
Get them back to work.
My stepdad was saying that back in the 70s and 80s in Iowa, to boost the GOP and to get people working and stuff like that, they got them out there doing conservation work. So and it's like, why not? It's like, granted, it may not pay as grounds, but it's like you're outside, you're doing something.
You're
that's
doing
important.
something. You're being productive.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But going back to health, I can have I basically could have all the success in the world financially and spiritually, and with my happiness in Epic Whitetail Habitat. But if I don't have my health, am I going to be happy with all that money? Am I going to be happy with everything that I have? So I'm so grateful to have my health, and I do not take it for granted. And I love sharing my story, my health journey, because I got to a point where I was not happy with my weight.
Okay.
I've never been a big guy. I'm 6'3", and I carried it really well, and I could hide it real well. But for myself personally, I was not happy where I was, and I took it under control. I'm not huge. I don't want to be Arnold Schwarzenegger huge, anything like that. But I want to be physically fit. I do all these hunts. I love to go out to Montana with a friend of mine that lives out there and hunt with him. And I want to be in shape.
This whole reason why I got into this too was to meet people. My first pro staff that I got a part of was Dead Red Outdoors. He's based out of Cody, Wyoming, and Wyoming is one of my favorite states. I spent about a decade ago, I was homeless, and so I decided to go hitchhiking. And I spent about 3 weeks in Wyoming just snaking my way through it, and it's just an absolute beautiful thing. But, in order to hunt that state, you have to either have a guide or have a resident that lives there. So it's like, I'm gonna start doing this and start advertising for products that it's like I don't currently use, but it's like I like the message behind it. I like what the product stands for. It's either American made or it's like American influence, and it's just fantastic. So then from there, it got me into where I'm at right now. Which has been fantastic. It's been a great thing, and I can understand. Like for me, it's like at one point in time I was over 300 pounds, and I dropped the weight down to 200. It's like now it's like I'm at a point where I need to focus on myself to get myself healthy again. And I have bad knees, and it's like it's just what happens is just when I need to go in and get them redone. And it's like now it's kind of been refocusing how I want to project the next 10, 15, 20 years of my life, because
absolutely
it is a strategy that's it's gonna be expensive, because knees are not cheap.
No, they're not. And I want to leave this earth the best version of myself when that time comes. I'm chasing the best version of myself every day. I'm not going to be who I am right now tomorrow. I do believe at the end of my life, and I'm not going to get all religious here on you because I'm not a Bible thumper, but I am a Christian and I believe in God, and I believe that we go to heaven when we die. And when I meet God, I feel that he's going to introduce me to the man that I could have been. And I want to know that man really well.
Wouldn't it be funny if he showed you a mirror?
I know it.
I agree with you too. It's like I'm not a Bible thumper myself, but I do have faith, and it's like, and everything I do, and it's like I find that a deja vu has been kind of like my check mark in life. It's like whenever I have these random where I'll be off for 5 seconds, all of a sudden I come back to reality. It's like I was meant to be here. It's like it's happened to me when I met my fiance. What's happened to me when I came here, driving up that big hill, it just kind of clicked in me. So it's my own way of God's guiding me on my own path to putting me where I need to be at. Because it's like in a few years, it's like I don't know where this is going to lead me to. But it's like in the last 5, it's like now I run a podcast. I run the Bucks of Wisconsin side of everything, the merchandise, building our clientele. I mean, this this fall alone, I skyrocketed almost 4,000 people.
That's
and it's
awesome.
and what ended up happening was that Bill Cosby out of northern over by Chippewa Falls, he shot a 560-pound boar up there during early season bear hunting, and that just it blossomed things because people thought wow, this is impressive, because this is an old mature boar that knew it's start going to be a little more aggressive because it's getting older, it's massive, and it caused controversy between both left and right and animal lovers themselves. But just recently somebody decided to go take a selfie with the bear, and it's like, well, he found out the hard way that you can't give a bear a hug, and when you watch Paddington Bear, it gives people the wrong impression.
Yes, it does.
This, Disney effect. And it's Bambi is one of the worst movies out there. I will not let my daughter watch it because it gives her the wrong impression. And it's like, got to put these animals on Earth for our food now.
Absolutely, he gave us the dominion over the animals.
Exactly, and you can be a vegan as much as you want.
Go ahead.
To each their own, because it's karma is one of those things. And it's, I'm not going to talk bad about you because it's like, great, you're healthy, you're living life. It's like all I care about is happiness, because happiness drives good karma, good energy, and it puts you in a different place.
Absolutely. Happiness is a decision, and everybody puts an attachment on happiness. I'll be happy when.
Yes.
When I have this new car, I'll be happy. When I have this video game, when I have this TV, when I have this house. It's temporary happiness. I just choose to live my life in a state of gratitude. Therefore, I am happy every single day of my life.
I was listening to Jordan B. Peterson's podcast. He's a doctor in psychology up there in Toronto, and he was talking about the book of St. Thomas that was found back in the 1950s and stuff like that. And there's the expert in where it's talking about heaven is earth. And it's like you don't have to go into a church like that. And there's no heaven. It's like it wasn't like the interpretation that I heard from his voice. It sounded like there wasn't actually a sort of like a fantasy version of heaven. It's like it was talking about this is heaven. You create your own heaven. You create this own hell. And it's like we have that opportunity. We have that self-control. That's why he gave us free will, where we can create our own heaven, we can create our own hell. And there's people out there that are in prison because they created their own hell, because it's like, but then also they didn't rise up out of the depths of their early years where they kept held on to this negativity instead of blossoming into something free. And it's like, we have to fight good and evil every single day. It's like we have murderers out there, we have child rapists out there, so that's our evil, it's our demons that are out there in society. And it's like, luckily there's a lot of great people. I mean, there's 7 billion people in the world right now. And there's not one horrible dictator out there.
Yeah, right.
We don't have a Hitler anymore.
No, we don't.
Or Mao Zedong. So.
Absolutely.
So those are the real devils. Those are the real demons.
Yes, they are.
Really rose to power, and it's like the charismatic vision.
Yep, it sure is.
So it's like, well, maybe the devil's already come and passed. Now we're coming, because currently in this time of societies, we are the most peaceful it's ever been.
Yeah, we
don't
really
have
are.
anything. I mean, granted, we have the war on terrorism, but that's just a ploy to make money.
Yeah, it really is.
Which is sad, because it's like, after learning about like during the Gulf War, why it was so short was that they had pictures of caskets in the news. Well, then Bush just came in, and when we had the next after 9/11, well, then they passed laws to keep that out of the newspapers. So that's why we have this 18-year war on fantasy.
Yep, and like you could go into politics. Oh, this person got elected, so now our economy is really going to go downhill. Why not create your own economy? There's abundance everywhere on the face of this earth. We do live in the greatest country in the world. I don't care who our president is. I don't care who our elected officials are. We live in the greatest country in the world. That's why everybody wants to come here.
Yeah, everybody does, and that's why we don't have any suicide bombings.
Absolutely.
And then plus on top of that, it's like, thank God for the Second Amendment, because people, we learned our lesson, and it's from years past. It's like what has happened throughout history, and now it's like we've created, I guess you call it heaven, because now we have the most overweight people in the world because they've gotten complacent.
Yeah, they have. they really have gotten complacent, and the American diet is
growing for their food. They don't have to worry about hunting for their food. It's like they just got a credit card. It's like, oh, there's some pork right there. There's some venison. Well, not venison, but beef and all that product. So.
And how many calories did they burn doing that?
Nothing.
Yeah, exactly. But I live my life to be the best version of myself.
Do you have anything else you want to bring into play?
I don't at this time.
Okay, so on Friday, I just had to come with 3 questions I want to ask my guests. My first one is, what is your favorite meat?
My favorite meat is by far venison.
Okay.
Whitetail.
All right, then. And then what would be your favorite thing to hunt?
My favorite thing to hunt, and it's a goal that I've set for myself. Whether I'll achieve it or not, I don't know, but it's a driving factor for me. I want to get the North American Grand Slam of bighorn sheep.
Wow.
Being the desert bighorn, Rocky Mountain bighorn, Doll sheep, and stone sheep.
And then my last one is, what is your favorite fish to catch? My
favorite fish is by far trout.
Very cool.
I love fly fishing for trout, catch and release. I rarely will ever keep a trout to eat, but there's just something about fly fishing. We live around some major trout streams here in west central Wisconsin. I love going out to Montana, Wyoming to fly fish. It's kind of my zen. I get lost in it. It's a rhythm, and life is a rhythm. It's a heartbeat, and I live from my heart.
The great thing about everybody I've asked, this is your third person I've asked, but everybody's giving me a different answer every single time. When I ask about the favorite meat, because people may have had mountain lions, sure, it's like whatever your favorite meat is. But thank you for sharing everything. I mean, this has been a great podcast. We're coming just under an hour. It's like, I think this is going to give a lot of people a very sense of value of Epic Whitetail Habitat. So thank you, Brian, for being participating in this, and we'll have you again on it. I think this was a lot of fun. I think once you get some more stories when you come back from Pennsylvania, Michigan, I want to hear about them.
You bet. No problem. Thank you for today.
You're welcome.